Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Those of you who are new to my channel, I grow palm trees and exotic plants in the ground with winter protection. Welcome once again to my tropical style exotic garden in Zone 5B, Southern Ontario, Canada. Today we are going to concentrate on the front garden. I will try to keep this video as short and to the point as possible, giving you only the highlights. The foundation plants are covered and protected with 13 cold frames during the winter. Some of these plants have been in the ground close to 30 years. During the summer, I then add my so-called annuals, many of which are container grown and are brought indoors for the winter. I designed my exotic garden to have a tropical look and feel using large foliage plants. Some have bold and colorful flowers that are fragrant enough to smell halfway down the block on warm summer evenings. People passing by, either walking or driving, often stop and chat, curious about the unusual plant varieties and the gardener who tends to them year after year. I try to change up the color scheme and textures of the plants each season. Following the drought of 2022, this year I used more accent plants that are more drought tolerant, often used in tropical regions requiring less attention, water, and I did mass plantings of fewer species. I also chose a color scheme of purple and green tones. As it turns out, we had one of the wettest summers in years and temperatures several degrees below average. My lawn rarely looks this green throughout midsummer. The cooler, wetter summer allowed some plants to reach record sizes, while others flowered less or not at all. Here are some views of my front garden to show you the progression this summer. This is the 9th of July, 2023. Notice the plants at the bottom of the screen. Then, 1 month later, 9th of August, 2023. There's a great feeling to wake up with the rising sun on a warm summer morning, stepping into your personal tropical style garden. With coffee in hand, you slowly explore the jungle to see what's new or about to flower, or what may want your attention before it needs it. You can minimize your plant losses or disappointments by giving your garden a little extra attention each time you walk past. There is a limit, of course. There's a limit to the damage caused by insects, squirrels, skunks, raccoons who dig up, chew on, or people stealing plants through the night. This is my pink plumeria, Plumeria rubra, currently just over 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. With our coolish and rainy summer, flowering was much later in the season than normal, and the number of blooms greatly reduced compared to previous years. I planted these seed-grown cannas at the base of my large pink plumeria to cover the bare trunk and lower branches. They flowered reliably all season long and attracted many pollinators. Eventually, they reached a height of 4 to 5 feet, or up to 1.5 meters. Here's a list of a few more interesting plants that really made an impression on me this past summer. In the front garden, we had the oyster plant, Tradescantia spathacea. Also attracted a lot of attention from passers-by. Beautiful plant, bright green leaves on top with a purple underside. They multiplied very quickly and they filled in to form a nice border. These oleanders also flowered throughout the summer, producing masses of pink, fragrant, eye-catching blooms. Another favorite of the pollinators. This golden dewdrop, or duranta, also produces masses of small, bluish blooms all season long. This exquisite-looking flower is the rose mallow hibiscus. With its huge, exotic-looking flowers, it's actually winter hardy in colder zones. These purple and white datura flowers were seed grown this past spring and planted out when they were about 2 inches or 5 centimeters tall. They are uniquely fragrant and fast growing. When planted out at 2-foot centers, or about 60 centimeters, it's hard to believe they would dominate the garden by late summer, forming a hedge, shading out the plants at a height of 4 to 5 feet, or again 1.5 meters. Another group of amazing no-fuss tropical plants providing color and interest all season long are bromeliads. Initially, they can be pricey depending on their size and variety. I bought several varieties of neoregelias, Guzmania, and a rather large Ichmea. When bromeliads are well looked after, they reward you by producing offsets from the mother plant, giving you 2, 3, or more young plants for future seasons. This is how they looked in May when I planted them out. And this is how they are now, 5 months later in October. Their color is even more vibrant and intense by the end of the season when given the proper amount of sun exposure. And I picked up several new tropical hibiscus. These produce very showy, very vividly colored, large flowers. This variety is called Disco Diva. And this one is called Playboy, producing these magnificent blooms. The flowers are vividly colored, red with orange streaks, and the petals are slightly ruffled. They really did put on quite an amazing show. These are some new acquisitions to my collection this year, and they include this pink flowered oleander, this rose mallow hibiscus, a dwarf pomegranate, thank you David, and I picked up several flowering gingers. A lot of them were hedychiums, and more of this next season as I don't have any blooms to show you at this time, once they're in more presentable shape. And I bought several new palms. Again, more of this next season. All 3 of my Trachycarpus palms in the ground have never looked so good. It was a cool, wet summer, and I think they really enjoyed this. This grouping of Cordyline australis has put on some phenomenal growth this year. The tallest one now has 3 heads or crowns since flowering, making it difficult to tie up for winter protection. They have outgrown the cold frame or box I used to cover them with, forcing me to build an extension. Now 2024 is going to be a very challenging year. These cordylines were barely squeezed into a 12-foot or 3.6 meter tall box, making them close to 4 meters tall. This lovely plant, this is the red passion vine, Passiflora coccinea. It only produces flowers on the new growth, on the tips of the new growth. So the more you prune it, the bushier it gets, and hopefully the more flowers. It put on a wonderful show this past summer and got a lot of favorable comments. This blue porterweed was planted back in the spring. It pretty much tripled its size over the season. It also attracted a lot of pollinators. Next to the porterweed, we have the Mexican firebush, Hamelia patens. Beautiful contrasting orangish red against the green. This wild plumeria, or Plumeria pudica, put on a lot of growth this past summer, reaching a height between 8 and 9 feet. And unfortunately, it didn't flower while it was actually outside. Although it produced many flower buds, it only flowered once it was brought inside, and the tip of every branch had clusters of these beautiful white flowers. This is one of the few plumeria which are not fragrant, but the flowers are still stunning. This can of tropical red did produce some lovely flowers, but it didn't really multiply like it did in past years, possibly because I planted it in a different part of the garden. And this pineapple lily, Eucomis bicolor, a very unusual, very interesting looking plant, but I was a little disappointed in that the packaging showed the leaves as being more of a burgundy reddish color, and it didn't turn out to be the case. Next to that we have this heliconia, or common name parrotbeak. It's Heliconia psittacorum. I'm not sure the variety name, but again very exotic looking and put on quite a good show. This Mexican petunia, or Ruellia, was planted out in the spring as 6-inch cuttings. They do put out underground runners and they do spread. By the end of the season, some had reached over 3 feet, or about a meter tall. This is the bed with my Pindo palms on the east side of the yard. The crinum lilies have never looked so tall and full of flowers. My neighbors have commented this is the best the Pindo palms have ever looked, and I tend to agree. All 3 of my Sago palms flushed out new leaves this summer. I'm very happy with their progress this season. Here is a view from my living room window. This unusual hibiscus schizopetalis, with its gorgeous red flowers on these long stems. Beautiful plant, very unusual and very difficult to find. I grow several species of Brugmansia or angel's trumpet. This large one has been in the ground close to 10 years, and each year reaches a height of over 12 to 13 feet, and then it's heavily pruned back 6 to 8 feet and continues growing the following year. Most are container grown like this pink one, which is becoming quite a sizable plant. The flowers are large, lightly fragrant, and they do put on quite a show. I'm also experimenting trying to cross-pollinate and get some new varieties. I have tried to cross this pink one with this large yellow one in the ground. It has successfully pollinated and is now set seed. The seed pods resemble small bananas at this stage. As the season winds down, the days get shorter and the nights get cooler. This is how the garden looked towards the end of the season. There are many more exotic plants in my garden, but we can't give them all the attention they deserve in this video, so we'll save them for another time. As the nights get cooler, I start to bring in the tender plants. I'm currently growing over 160 species of plants, not counting cultivars or individual potted plants, so it's quite a long process. It's a staggered approach, bringing in the most tender tropicals first, and this process can take several weeks. Join me next time for part 2 of the 2023 Exotic Garden Update. We primarily look at the back garden to see how it's progressed. This is my own private space and very few people have a chance to see it. As always, thank you so much for watching, for sharing your time. If you have enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. Give us a like, it really does help the channel. Until next time, happy gardening.